the Gotta Run. This is Will Sanchez. My special guest today is Jack Hirschowitz. Dr. Jack Hirschowitz. He's an MD of psychiatry. He is also a marathoner that juggles. He is the oldest marathoner that actually juggles. I'm thrilled to have Jack Hirschowitz.
Thank you, thank you.
Before we go into this crazy sport of yours, of juggling and running, let's learn a little bit more about your early years. Tell us where you were born, a little bit about your childhood.
I was born in Namibia, in Africa, and grew up actually in Namibia. Learned to juggle from my mother, but only really took juggling seriously much later on in life. And so then I went to medical school in Cape Town, South Africa, and immigrated to the United States in 1977.
Wow.
Or 76.
Well, before we dash to the United States, let's go back to, Africa. That's an exotic place. And what was the name of the country?
Namibia.
And where is it?
It's south and west of South Africa. It's on the ocean, and it's quite a beautiful country. Not very densely populated, but extremely beautiful and wonderful country.
Excellent, excellent. So as a young child, you had plenty of opportunity to run around and enjoy nature?
I certainly did.
Okay. Now, why did your mom teach you juggling?
Because it was a semi-rural area where we lived. The only entertainment occasionally, other than an occasional movie when I was growing up, were traveling circuses. And so I was enthralled by circuses, and still am. Will travel far and wide to see circus arts performed.
Interesting. So you suspect that either you or your mom saw the jugglers, which are usually wearing clownish outfits. Depends.
Well, yeah. Some of us, sports jugglers, like to think of juggling as not related to clowning, but as a more serious activity.
Okay. So what was your age when you started?
When I started juggling, I was a kid, 12 years old, I'd say.
Okay. And you immediately took to it?
I did.
So is it a natural sport for youngsters?
I think that you can learn to juggle around 10, 11, 12. Before that, the coordination isn't quite there. And yeah, it's quite natural, and I've watched a number of 12-year-olds get very good very quickly in the last several years, while I'm still plodding along, trying to get better.
Really, after all these years. Interesting. Now, you're an MD in psychiatry, so what did you study in college?
So they have a different system there. It's 6 years of medical school. You go straight into medical school, and the college subjects that one might learn elsewhere in college are integrated into the program.
So you go to medical school, college after high school?
Yes, straight from high school.
Well, that's great. But what encouraged you to go into medical school?
Neither of my parents were college educated. I think it was something that just happened. I was interested and went to medical school.
Interesting. Okay. And you still kept up to juggling?
Well, the juggling, I think, went into the background for a number of years. My initial plan was to be a surgeon, and I did a couple of years of residency in that direction before I switched to psychiatry.
Okay. Now, why psychiatry?
My earlier interest in psychiatry was because I thought it was more sophisticated, more intellectual, and it would be a way of getting deeper into things rather than being so technical.
Mm-hmm. And you've been doing this work for how many years?
Many years.
Many
yes,
years.
Yes, many years.
Interesting. Now, psychiatry, when I took a psychiatry, I don't know, the Bob Newhart show back many, many, many years ago, he played psychiatrist on TV where the patient would lie on the couch, and they talk.
Right.
More recently, The Sopranos had, one of Tony would go see his psychiatrist, but they would do it across. Which school are you? Are you the couch guy or?
Well, I would actually say I'm neither of those. I see myself as a general psychiatrist. So I've actually worked full-time in academia for many years. I was a full-time academic psychiatrist doing research, teaching, as well as psychopharmacology, as well as psychotherapy. So I'm more holistic in my approach and work with people in all domains. So I spend a lot of time on the diagnostic side with patients and then decide what the best treatments are for them and help them get the best treatments, even if I'm not always the best person to give it. And then rather than that, I have a particular therapeutic approach that I apply to everyone who walks into my office.
Interesting. So tell us, what's the profile of a patient that would ideally go to you?
It could be anyone. Although my research was in bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and in psychopharmacology and in more recent years in anxiety and depression, I see people, anyone who needs to see a psychiatrist. I do family therapy, couples therapy,
Okay.
So I work across the board.
Jack of all trades, so to speak.
Jack of all trades.
And it's a great name, Jack. The most famous bipolar person now, well, in fictional, is I don't know if you watch Homeland.
I certainly do.
You do?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Homeland.
You're a big fan of, what's her name, Carrie Matheson?
Yes, it is.
She's very passionate, to a dangerous extent.
You think for 1 minute you get away with this?
She's also bipolar, which is something that she has to conceal from her colleagues.
So, is that kind of a person you would treat?
That is the kind of person I would treat, yes.
Now, is she getting the proper treatment in your opinion?
It looked like it to me, you know.
I know she takes medication, so you said you're part of the pharmaceutical, it's part of the thing. I guess you determined which medications and what dosage?
All of that, yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes.
I mean, I know nothing about it. I want to take full advantage of you being here. I love her character. Now, I don't know if it's common and maybe it's peculiar to her, when she's off her medications, sometimes because of traumatic purposes, her senses are immensely enhanced.
Right.
And she's able to connect the dots that nobody else can, particularly
Well, it's interesting
photos.
that in a manic episode, in the early stages, that would apply, where everything is improved and increased. And then, of course, if it keeps going up, one crosses a line and goes into a state of being quite dysfunctional with tremendous energy and great ideas and speeded up thinking, and that becomes very problematic. The only thing about that show is that she seems to miss one dose and then go into a manic episode. That's not so realistic, but I guess for purposes of graduated from medical school, then I did a residency in psychiatry eventually, yes.
Okay, where did you do the residency?
Also in South Africa.
Okay. Now you needed a place to live and work. How did you make that decision?
I think the decision to move to the United States was a complicated one. Part of it was the apartheid political system in South Africa that I wanted to get away from. And part of it was, you know, growing up in a small, isolated part of the world, you want to get into the world and be somewhere else. The United States was the great country that appealed to so many people around the world, and I wanted to be here. So now I'm an American citizen, have been for many years, and this is home.
This is home, New York.
New York is home,
Okay.
yes.
Did you move to New York at first from Africa?
No, I decided when I came to this country I would live either in New York or in California. And so I spent the next 10 years in Cincinnati.
Very close to California? as a medical doctor?
Yes, as a psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist.
At the University of Cincinnati.
University, you said you did the academics. And now today, you do a private practice? Or?
Yes, for the last 8 or 9 years, I've been more or less exclusively in private practice.
Okay. Anybody that needs to see you, they can just call you up. And, you know, the demons are chasing me, or I'm suffering from anxiety, or something is off.
Something like that.
I mean, in your opinion, you know, years and years and years ago, people would hide their mental illness. I mean, to some extent, it's still true today. Have you seen improvement in the field in terms of reaching out to people?
Well, I think in New York in particular, there's not much stigma attached to seeing a psychiatrist. There are enclaves of people who, you know, where the community ethics and values are a little different, and where there's still a big stigma attached to seeing a psychiatrist. I see some of those people too, so I'm very aware of those issues.
Okay. In general, what were some of your biggest successes in helping somebody? You know, what was the outcome that really surprised you or really was so meaningful to you? Do you have any few cases like that?
I like to think that I have a bunch of cases like that. And, you know, it's not so much the dramatic response to treatment as seeing people's lives turned around a little bit and feeling that I've contributed in a way and helped make that happen. I think for the most part, the people that do the best are the people that, you know, have done a lot of the work themselves. And so I'm more of a coach in many ways. You know, one of the things that the running and the juggling have contributed have been to emphasize for me the role of sport, of exercise, of nutrition, of looking after your body. And so that's a big part of my practice. I really make a big thing about all of that with my patients. Try to be a role model.
Okay, well, let's go into that. You said you put juggling aside when you were in medical school. When did it come back?
So I think it started when I was in Cincinnati that I began to juggle a lot more. Attended groups and classes and did a few things to improve my juggling. But when I came to New York, I became very serious about juggling, and I meet with a group once a week of jugglers, and we juggle together. I go to juggling conventions. I work on improving my skills all the time. And somewhere along the way, I decided to start running and juggling, and became quite passionate about that.
Did you go to Central Park and then just tried it out and got the looks?
Yeah, my son-in-law is a runner.
Yes.
And he talked me into running with him, and he talked me into joining the New York Roadrunners. And I started doing the running and juggling from day one. I started running in all of the races over the years.
What was your first race as a juggler runner?
The International Jugglers Association have an annual meet,
yes,
and we have the World Joggling Championships, which is what we call running and juggling.
Joggling.
And there I've been doing that for a number of years now, 20 years more. But the running and juggling in Central Park and in races with non-jugglers has been for the last 12 years or so.
So how many races do you think you've done running and juggling?
I've done lots.
You lost count?
Maybe 50 or more.
Okay,
races.
so you've probably been seen by many New Yorkers. Now, what some of the most interesting comments do you get while you're doing this?
Somebody just yelled out, "Look at the juggling people."
Well, I do get a lot of comments, and people seem to enjoy watching someone run by and juggle. Usually it's something about, I can't stand still and do that, and you're running and juggling, and you know, all kinds of comments, but mostly they're friendly and people seem to enjoy it.
Okay. Now, you said you do this international competition. Are there rules in running and juggling?
There are two rules. The first rule is that every step forward, you should be juggling. So if I run a marathon, I'm really juggling for 26.2 miles. The second rule is that if you drop a ball, or a bean bag, which is what we use, you have to go back to where you dropped it, technically. Now, when you're running with a large crowd in a marathon, for example, it's not feasible to turn around and go back.
You're going to get trampled.
You either pick it up or you pull another one out of your pocket and keep juggling. They're small and they flatten when they hit the ground, so you know, they're safe. People don't fall over them.
Okay. All right. So how many marathons have you done juggling 26.2 miles?
I'd say I've done 12 marathons juggling and one without.
One without. Oh, we'll talk about that. That sounds like an interesting story. And which one was the most interesting one in doing the juggling and the marathon?
I ran Paris last year, which was really fun and wonderful, and seeing the
I'm sure
city.
the Parisians just loved you. I mean, they're into all that kind of stuff.
That's true. They do like juggling, and so that was fun. I think that I absolutely loved running and juggling the New York City Marathon.
How many times have you done that?
I've done that juggling 10 times,
The New York City Marathon?
9 or 10.
The New York City Marathon,
Yes,
really?
yes.
Wow. But something happened in the last one. I remember reading they changed the rules, that they weren't allowing costumes because people like to go like Batman and Spider-Man, where they were tied up. I mean, they were covered up. And I thought the requirement was you couldn't wear a mask of some
Right.
type.
So I think after the bombing in Boston, they introduced a whole bunch of new rules for safety reasons. And that included not running with props and not running with sporting equipment. I continued to run and juggle. I knew that there were these restrictions, but I felt that this was a sport, and this was really the only opportunity for people who are interested in this sport like myself to be able to run a marathon. Mm-hmm. And so I've taken great care to not, to not be a safety hazard to anyone. I run on the side as much as possible. I don't suddenly stop and bend down and pick up a ball, and I don't drop that often, but if I do.
So you're saying there weren't complaints about you doing this?
No, I don't think so.
Probably mostly compliments.
No, I think what happened was that someone announced that he was going to be running and juggling this marathon, and he was informed of the rules and told that that wasn't allowed. And then I think, in fairness, I was also told, specifically, I received an email saying no more juggling in any of our events.
Oh, really? Not only the marathon, but
nothing, yes.
The 5K
and
or
so,
anything?
yeah, so I've stopped juggling in New York Roadrunner events, which I'm sad about, because I love it.
Very sad.
It's a wonderful organization, and I completely understand that there are safety concerns. I think it's unfortunate because I think that these beanbags are not really a safety hazard.
I think it went overboard. I don't see the, well, who knows? Well, maybe in time, because, you're aspiring to the next generation. Where's the next generation of jugglers going to come from?
Oh, exactly.
You're a role model. Right. In fact, do you mentor other runners to take up this crazy sport?
I encourage them. I certainly do. There are quite a few of us around. I'm running the Philadelphia Marathon in a week, 2 weeks, week and a half.
Now, do they have the similar restrictions?
Now, you see, I shouldn't be saying this to you, but I learned something many years ago. It's easier to apologize than it is to ask for permission. So
that's a very, very common business acumen.
So, when you ask that question, I've been running and juggling in marathons and very well received. And often, I ran a marathon in May in Oregon. It was the Newport Marathon. It was a wonderful experience. I came second in my age group while juggling. The person in charge of the whole race called me up to get my award at the end. And spoke about it in glowing terms, and so I think we're still welcome in many marathons.
Oh, excellent. But let me ask you this juggling. I mean, how many times are you in a marathon are you tossing that ball, and what kind of injuries that you will have to overcome? I mean, it sounds like carpal tunnel syndrome comes to mind.
Right. The other. Carpal tunnel could be one. Fortunately, it hasn't happened to me. I did have a period where I had golf elbow. So, one side it's tennis elbow, the other side it's golf elbow. And I was diagnosed with golf elbow. And that was painful. I ran and juggled with a certain amount of pain for a number of years, and then it went away.
It went away.
So I'm good now. Yeah, I changed my style of juggling. So I found out that if I juggle vertically, if I hold the balls and throw them up like this and catch them vertically rather than with my hand like this,
vertically,
that it made a difference.
Okay. Now that's interesting. You're running and you're juggling. Now, it's tough enough to run. You've got to keep your concentration. When you're running and juggling, what are your eyes doing?
So my eyes are doing the same as everyone else's eyes. I can see all around. I don't look at the balls. In juggling, it's important to see the balls at the apex of the throw. So when the ball is turning around and going down, you have to see it in some way. You have to see it in your peripheral vision. You don't have to look at it. Somewhere you have to see it. If you don't see it, you drop the ball. So as soon as the ball goes outside of your peripheral vision, you drop it. And so once you see it, though, your brain tells your hand where to go. So you don't need to actually look at the ball.
Interesting.
Or your hands.
Interesting. Now, at the end of the marathon, are you completely exhausted mentally?
No. The juggling, I forget that I'm juggling after a while. In fact, it's been tricky because I remember when I was sort of in the end of a marathon and I was sort of in a zone and a bit spaced out, I suddenly thought I was juggling with only 2 balls because I couldn't see the third one. You know, when you're juggling 3 balls, one of them is always in your hand. And so there are only 2 in the air at any one time. And I know that extremely well, yet I got confused because I could only see 2 balls and started worrying about whether I was juggling 2 or 3. That was very unusual.
Hallucination.
Yeah, almost. It was.
Interesting. Have you gone further than a marathon in juggling?
No, not yet.
Not yet. I mean, a 60Ks? Well, I guess it's this weekend.
I know.
A little too soon.
I have a little bit of a sore Achilles tendon, so I'm a bit worried about that.
Now, you said one of the rules, if you drop it, you have to go back and pick it up, or in the case of a marathon, you just pick up
you're not going to
one.
worry about that.
Have you done one where you never dropped one?
I have not done a marathon without dropping.
Okay.
I've dropped 2 or 3 times pretty much in every marathon.
Okay.
The 6, 5, 6, 10K, 10-mile races, I'm pretty good. I can run those most of the time without dropping.
Them. Excellent. That's amazing. I think you said before the show that you run unattached. Occasionally you run with a friend. So what is your regimen in terms of keeping fit? You know, do you follow a diet? You look like you do.
I run a lot, so I burn a lot of calories and I eat like a pig, so I don't know that I'm dieting as well as I should be. But fortunately, I haven't been gaining weight. So I think I'm doing okay, although I'm trying to watch what I eat. I exercise by running 6 days a week. I run. I usually do long runs on the weekend. And I go to the gym about 3 times a week. So when I'm in the gym, my running is usually on a treadmill, which I don't enjoy very much, but I juggle on the treadmill as well.
You must entertain the other
yeah, well, they know
runners.
me. They know me in my gym. So
which gym do you go to?
Equinox.
Equinox, that's my gym. I go
on
to
85th.
85th. While you're doing the training, do you also juggle?
All the time.
All
yes,
the time?
Yes.
All the time. Okay, but this most recent New York, you did run the New York City Marathon, and you respected, because you're a good citizen, the rule. And how did you enjoy running without juggling? That must have felt very strange.
It was strange. It was fun, though. It was a different experience, and I ran a better race. I ran 10 minutes faster, so my pace improved. In fact, I qualified for the Boston Marathon in my age group, 70 to 74.
Excellent. So you're going to do Boston?
I don't know. Actually, I qualified with a few seconds over, so I'm not sure how strict they are.
Oh, unfortunately, they're very strict.
Okay, then I probably won't be doing Boston Marathon.
Just a few seconds over. So you know, you lose about 10 minutes doing the juggling in a marathon.
Right.
Is there a race you're looking forward to?
I'm running the London Marathon in May.
Oh,
April.
I'm sure they'll let you do the balls.
And that'll be my first big charity run, and I'm going to, take the charity side of it very seriously too. But I'm looking forward to it.
Which is charity?
It's a children's abuse hotline, so it's an important one, and I'm interested in that. So I'm going to do that, and hopefully have a lot of fun with it.
You will.
And professionally, I think that I'm trying to be a role model for my patients as well. It's, we talk about exercise, we talk about running, we talk about pushing the envelope. What I do is a crazy thing, and so, you can do anything at any age. One has to try as much as possible to get as much out of life as one can.
That's a good philosophy, a role model. I would imagine some of your patients look at you a little askance.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
But they totally appreciate.
If they Google me before they come for a visit, they're usually quite suspicious at the first visit.
Oh, really? Interesting. All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover that we didn't cover?
You know, I'd like to mention a name of someone,
Sure.
Albert Lucas, who was the first person to run and juggle the New York Marathon, any marathon, and so he holds a Guinness World Record of being the first joggler to run a marathon.
Oh, excellent.
And he was invited to run the New York City Marathon and juggle.
For this year?
No, many years ago.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the sport of juggling is seen as a true sport, and included in these events.
I guess you need a good lobbying effort.
Yeah.
And it's not an Olympic sport yet, so.
No, it was once,
It was?
apparently, yes. Till the 1930-something Olympics.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And in fact, but I remember reading there was actually a juggler that did a sub-3 while juggling.
Oh, yes.
Not that common, I would
Well,
presume.
he's the person who actually told them he was coming to New York and ended the running and juggling for all of us, unfortunately.
Well, listen, thank you so much for coming in. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, and thank you very much for having me.
So.